What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to be ranking all of the Spider-Man related movies. And by that, I mean I won't just be ranking all of the main threes movies, I will also be ranking the Spider-Verse movies and the Sonyverse villain movies. I, however, will be excluding the Avengers movies that Spider-Man was a part of because though he's in them, they aren't focused on him, and they have much more higher stakes in those movies. So I'm going to exclude them and just focus on the Spider-Man related movies, like the ones that are focused on Spider-Man, whether he's the main character or it's a Spider-Man element movie, or again, the villain movies that don't have Spider-Man in them, they all stem from Spider-Man comics, so they count. So I will be ranking all 16 movies in this franchise. And if you have any suggestions on what I should do next for my next video, whether it's movies or music, leave them in the comments below. And if you have your own ranking on these movies, again, leave them in the comments below. And if you have anything else to say, leave them in the comments below. And remember, these are just my opinions. I'm not saying my opinions matter and yours doesn't. I'm just giving my take on what a good Spider-Man movie is and a bad Spider-Man movie is. And I will be ranking them worst to best, like I did in my Ninja Turtles video. So, let's get to it. Coming in at number 16, we have Madam Web. And this movie is a whole hurdle of what the fuckery. Like, stemming from the visuals, the acting, the dialogue, the conflict, the action. Everything about this movie is just wrong. And it all stems from just how poorly executed this movie was. It felt rushed. It felt like we were trying to make a product and we just picked the most non-used Spider-Man character. So here you go. And again, the actors in this movie, I feel want to give their all, but they don't give their all. I could blame that on bad directioning, but given some of these actors' track records, I'm going to say that it comes as a two-way streak. And it all stems from Dakota Johnson playing our titular character, who is just as lifeless as a bag of bricks. Honestly, she does not give a good performance in this movie. I want to like Dakota Johnson in something for once, and this is not the movie to win me over on her performances. She did 3 50 Shade movies, and this is the movie that made me feel like she's not giving it her all. And again, Sydney Sweeney's in this movie, and Dakota Johnson happens to give the worst performance. She outranks Sydney Sweeney as the worst performance, though she's still not a good actor in this movie either. And let's talk about our villain, who is embarrassingly ADR throughout the entire movie. I don't even remember his name, but he's supposed to be this Spider-Man guy who wants to kill these 3 girls in order to obtain the Spider-Man. I don't know. I don't remember the plot, and I don't really care. The villain sucks. The ADR sucks. And also the action sucks too. It's like I'm playing a shitty video game from the early 2000s. Not saying all video games from the early 2000s were shitty. I'm just saying there were some shitty ones. And let's talk about the music. It's okay. And what else? I don't like the pacing of this movie. There's one scene and then it cuts immediately to another. There's one scene immediately cuts to another. One scene immediately cuts to another. It all rushes up so fast that I don't have time to take in whatever the hell I'm supposed to be taking in. So this is the most sloppiest and most embarrassing movie I've seen in the entire Spider-Man franchise, and I don't recommend it. I recommend it to those who want to watch a bad movie, but if you want to watch a good movie, don't watch this one. Coming in at number 15 is Craven the Hunter, and this is honestly just as bad as Madam Web. Really, really shitty acting, really horrible effects and visuals, and a very, very sloppily edited film. Only where Madam Web felt rushed and quick to the point of its rushness, Craven felt too slow and boring, and the characters feel dull in this. Aaron Taylor Johnson, I love the guy, but did not give a great performance in this. And Russell Crowe, love the guy, but did not give a good performance in this. And the guy who played Rhino, arguably the worst performance in the movie. Just why can't they make good Sony villain movies? I should just really rephrase that, I guess. But anyway, yeah, this movie's just as bad as Madam Web, but it has one or two cool long action scenes. I do like the violence in here, and the music is actually kind of cool in here. That's all the positives I can say. This movie's still bad. Coming in at number 14 is the 2018 Venom movie, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, as a lot of people weirdly like this movie, but I have not been a fan of the buddy cop, buddy haha vibe that this movie was giving. I wanted a legit good Venom movie. Uh, Not a horror movie, but a thriller at least. What we got here was just a buddy movie, and I was not a fan of that vibe. And the movie started getting more worse and worse and worse throughout the film. Tom Hardy's acting in the movie was just all over the place. He went from calm, collected to cool and laid back to eccentric and wild. And this is before he becomes Venom too, so it's like his performance is all over the place. And even when he does become Venom and he's starting to act all crazy because of the effect of the symbiote, or sorry, symbiote, whatever they call it in the movie, it doesn't really feel far different from Tom Hardy's performance before he became Venom. So it's like there's no difference. Also, the visuals, though, are okay, do extend their welcome a bit, as they do become a little bit Spider-Man 2002-ish. And I'm not a fan of the Carlton Drake villain. He's just bland, and just as bland as the symbiote that takes him as a host. And I'm not a fan of the back and forth relationship between uh, Michelle Williams' character and his character. So it's just it's a dull buddy cop buddy movie mess, and I'm not a fan of it. Coming in at number 13, we have Morbius, and a lot of people are probably going to hound me down for putting this above Venom, but there's a few reasons why. Uh, One is, while I couldn't get behind Tom Hardy's performance in Venom, I can weirdly get behind Jared Leto's performance in Morbius for the most part. I'll explain why. In the first hour and a half of the movie, he's actually a very interesting, decent character, and I can get behind his every dialogue, despite it being, well, Jared Leto, who's well known for being hated in comic book history. But in here he did pretty good. Again, for the most part. By the end, when he has to fight Milo, played by Matt Smith, he's kind of dull and just kind of eh. But again, I got behind him more than I got behind Tom Hardy as Venom or Eddie Brock or whatever. And then we have Milo, again played by Matt Smith, where he has the opposite problem. In the beginning, I didn't really care for Milo, just his relationship with Morbius. But by the end, when he becomes full villain, he's a lot of fun. He's not threatening by any means, but he's a lot of fun. And Matt Smith hams it up to where it's entertaining. And I'm like, all right, this is pretty fun. Um, and the visuals kind of go back and forth from being mostly bad to mostly creative, but it's still at the bottom because the story is pretty slow and the pacing isn't really there, and it needed a lot more build up for its it needed a lot more payoff for its build ups, and I was not a fan of the payoff. I'm not even a fan of the post credit scene, but spoiler alert, there's a post credit scene. So yeah, it's not a good movie, but I found it more interesting-ish to watch than Venom. Coming in at number 12, we have The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and this was a movie for a long time since it came out. I've been trying really hard to defend, only because of Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I really love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and I love Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. I I really love their chemistry together, and I love the chemistry. I love it in the first movie. I love it in this movie, and they just they just steal the show with every scene that they're in together or even separate. You know what I mean? So like they're both really good as a whole, but they're also good on their own. And the visuals are really good for the most part, but most of the time they're good. Sometimes they can go a little much in the visuals department and overstate their welcome, but most of the time it's really good. And Electro can go back and forth from being an interesting villain to a basic bitch villain, and Jamie Foxx tries to work his way around it, though most of the time he can't. But there are times where he can be really threatening and sympathetic, but at the same time, again, basic bitch villain. Okay, now let's talk about the problems. I'm not a fan of how many villains that they threw at us in one movie. Electro's supposed to be the main villain, and then Green Goblin is just kind of shoehorned in, played by Dane DeHaan, which I like Dane DeHaan, but he kind of just got sidelined in this movie. Again, Paul Giamatti plays Rhino in here, and again, really got sidelined. He has only two scenes in this movie, the beginning and the end, and Dane DeHaan has a few scenes here and there in this movie, but him as Green Goblin didn't get much to shine, and it sucks that we're never gonna see him get to shine again. So we got our hopes up for nothing. So that's kind of what pissed me off. Also, I'm not a fan of the multiple subplots of him trying to of Peter trying to like mend his relationship with Gwen and try to figure out more about his father's secrets, or trying to save Harry from getting infected with his blood, or trying to save the where I get Spider-Man has so much responsibility in every movie he's in, but man, they kind of compile so many subplots in this movie that it becomes really hard to defend. So it's not a good movie, but again, most of the time I feel like it's just Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone giving it their all is what saves the movie. Also, the music's kind of all over the place. I'm not really a fan of the tone and the vibe of how much they shift every now and then. The first movie had a more grittier and more grounded take. This one just kind of goes back and forth, and I'm like, all right, this tone is a little off. But yeah, it's not a good movie, but I can go back and watch it, I guess. Coming in at number 11, we have Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And I know I said I wasn't a fan of this take on Venom with Tom Hardy in the first movie. I was like, you know what? They're going to make a bunch of movies with them. Might as well find my least hated out of the ones. And this one I felt was a bit better than the first movie, but not by much. I love that they introduced Carnage, and I love that Woody Harrelson is playing him. He really does a good job playing him, and I love the scenes that they get so violent for a PG-13 movie. I'm kind of disappointed that it's not R and they can't go all the way with how much um Carnage could pull off, but it it's good for what we got, and I love that that Tom Hardy's acting in here is a bit more structured, not by much, but a bit more structured. He still does that weird raspy voice every now and then, but his acting got a bit better in this movie. My only problem is that I'm not a fan of how much they nerfed the fuck out of Carnage. Like this was a character that should have been built up in like two or three more movies and then given a really cool like story. But here he has his own story. It's just a really noticeable side plot, and I'm not a fan of it. And then they kind of just nerf him in the end, and I kind of wish that they did something more with them. And most of the action is pretty good, but then there are some times where you can barely see it, and it just shows that shitty shaky cam thing I'm not a fan of. And most of the actors are okay. There's just some lines that don't work, but kind of we kind of take what we can get. You know what I mean? So it's not a good movie, but it's an okay-ish movie. Better than the first Venom. Coming in at number 10, we have Spider-Man 3, and this is a movie that a lot of people are split on. Most of the people will say that this is the worst out of the Tobey Maguire movies, or even close to being worse than all of the Spider-Man movies combined, while others say it's misunderstood. There's some value to it, and here's my take. It's yes. Yes to all of it. I feel that there is a lot of problems with this movie that I'm not a huge fan of that people try to defend or try to bash on, but I also think that there's some value to it as well. Uh I love that they acknowledge that Peter and MJ's relationship is kind of toxic, and they're kind of going through this like period of, wait, is this really how we want to live? Is this really like our relationship? Like they're not fully saying that, but they're showing that this isn't a really healthy relationship. They don't really see eye to eye what they're really going through. They don't want help. They're stubborn. It's just they give a bit more depth. I just kind of hated that they had 3 movies to give it to us. I'm not really a fan of the MJ Peter Parker relationship from these movies because they kind of go back and forth, dick each other around. Here, they kind of do that, but it's like it. You understand now where both sides are coming from, and it works a bit more. You know what I mean? Not a whole lot, but it works a bit more. And I love the Sandman story, and I love the performance by Thomas Hayden Church. Holy shit. The Sandman story arc, like side story, is so fucking powerful. Like, I'm not usually a fan of like side stories that go nowhere or just feel like a side quest, but this side quest is the is the is the exception because it's so powerful. It's so emotional. You can see why, literally in one movie, you can see why he does what he has to do and what leads him to there, and how he has to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like how his wrongdoings come back to haunt him in the end. Like it plays in and ties in to everything, and I love it. And I'm not a fan of how they shoehorn Venom in, but I'll give credit. They made a scary looking Venom, played by Topher Grace. Which again, Topher Grace is not the best pick in mind for Eddie Brock, but I'll take him better than Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock from Venom One, and he's there in the movie. He's just there. He's just there. His Venom's pretty cool, but Brock as a character is just there. He's basically a bizarro Peter Parker, just kind of a douche. But yeah, and I'm not a fan of the Harry Osborn getting amnesia thing. I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that he was like faking that he had amnesia just so he can slowly drive a wedge between MJ and Peter. Like that would have been a cool reveal that he was faking it all this time, but no, he really had amnesia and he was just giving this weird dopey eye performance. Uh, I kind of would have loved to see him be a more sinister villain in this before he got redeemed, but I'm not a writer, so I don't know what to tell you. And there's just so many characters and villains that get introduced, but they have little to do, and it just kind of comes off as awkward. But again, there are some things that work about this movie, and there are those handful of things that don't work and hold it back. But I don't think it's the worst movie. Everything I listed before this movie are, I think, are the worst movies. Coming in at number 9, we have Venom: The Last Dance, and again, I'm not really a fan of how this Venom trilogy started, but I have to say this is the best one out of them. Tom Hardy's performance is a little less distracting this time around, and this time we are accompanied by actual interesting characters on the side, and we also get to see multiple symbiotes, and we get to actually see them in action, even though it's not until the end. And we get to see Miss Chen as a sort of like side character in this movie as well. But there is no Michelle Williams, which is good because I was not a fan of that like back and forth dialogue with one another. And I really like the road trip family. Like at first, I was like, they're just kind of there, but I like the bond that they have. I like the chemistry. I like how they work well off each other, and the effects got a lot better in this weirdly in this movie, and I was happy with how this movie ended, despite it not being my favorite trilogy in the Marvel movies. I thought it was okay. I was just not a fan of how Null was not used in this movie at all. He was just some guy in the shadow, and they got Andy Serkis to voice him, and they barely use him. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of a dumb thing. And also, when I said Tom Hardy was not as distracting, he is still kind of distracting as an actor in this movie. So yeah, he needed a little work. But other than that, it's the best Venom movie in the trilogy, but it's not the best Spider-Man movie, clearly. Coming in at number 8, we have the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, and for a while, I was kind of debating on where to put this on my list, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Tobey was obviously my Spider-Man growing up, and also I appreciate that this was the movie, one of the movies that said that we could take comic book movies seriously and give them stakes and not just use them as some campy over the top action filled movie. No, this is one of the movies that made it true that we can put depth into our characters. We could put effort into making these movies like work. Like we can make them work. And I really appreciate that. But I am not a fan of how the effects did not age up. And I know 2002, I know people are going to say it's 2002, effects weren't perfected yet, but when Gollum from Lord of the Rings is looking better than Spider Man's effects in the same year, you know that there's a problem. And also, I'm not a fan of the dialogue in the movie. And some of the dialogue in the movie, it kind of comes off as weird, especially the scenes with Peter and MJ played by Kirsten Dunst. And I am not a fan of how they can make Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin scary, but at the same time, he's mostly over the top to where it's not as taken as seriously. And I know it's still a little campy because if it's a movie called Spider-Man, I get it, but it I would like to have one villain in a comic book movie where I can, be intimidated by, and Green Goblin was one I could be, intimidated by, but they kind of go back and forth from making him intimidating to just making him silly, and I wasn't a fan of that. But before I continue talking about this movie, I will say I do like this movie. I'm just not a big a fan as everybody else is. And I know a lot of people are saying that they prefer part two than this movie, so it kind of balances out my opinion, I guess. So yeah, it's not a terrible movie, but there are some things that don't age well in it. Also, I know that there was a scrapped intro for Spider-Man's character, but I'm not a fan of the way the final product. I'm not a fan of the way the final product kind of just shows Spider-Man just there. That's it. That's all. I still like this movie. It's just not the best. Coming in at number 7, we have Spider-Man: Far From Home, and this is the second Tom Holland movie in the MCU, and this is the first one without Tony Stark as Iron Man. And I was hoping that this is my least favorite out of the movies because this was the one where I was thinking, oh, this is where Tom Holland's gonna transition his way into Spider Man, and then by the third movie he'll be, a full on fledged Spider Man, like on his own character and his own demeanor. But no, he's still kind of in the same, like in the shadows of Tony Stark, and I know he's grieving over him, but like everything is Tony Stark written with Nick Fury joining the crew, recruiting him, telling him Tony Stark did this, Tony Stark trust you with this and that. Like it puts so much pressure on him to where it makes me uncomfortable to like watch, and I get it, but like it didn't work for me, and I was not a fan of the second Spider-Man villain being a Tony Stark hater, which I felt like the first movie worked better because you get to see uh Peter out of his depth. Okay, I'll get to that later. But I don't like the fact that this is another Tony Stark like hater who is trying to take down Spider-Man and trying to like be the new hero. And I'm not a fan of how maniacal and how over the top Jake Gyllenhaal portrays it, and it just didn't work for me. But I do like the little vacation aspect of the film where he's like trying to like where Peter's trying to like impress MJ, played by Zendaya, and try to like win her over. And during all this, he's still getting roped into being Spider Man when he's saying, "I don't want to be Spider Man," but he's like, "Okay, I'll do it." It's funny for most of the part, for the most part, but it works, but it doesn't work. So take it for what it's worth. Coming in at number 6, we have Spider Man 2, and this is probably one where people are going to be like, "Why is this lower than number 1?" Because I know for a fact that this is everybody's supposed favorite Spider-Man movie, and it's the most iconic, it's the most action, it's the most depth, it's the most story driven. I get it, and I can see where you're coming from. And it's the best out of the Tobey Maguire movies. I'll give you guys credit for that, and it really is a good movie. But I there are a few things that do hold it back for me, and that is the whole like Peter and MJ dicking each other around, whether they like each other, they don't like each other, they do, they don't, and stuff like that. I'm not a fan of that. Like they had to start out with these characters being interesting and have good chemistry. I've never felt that Kirsten and Toby had any good chemistry at all. I don't know. I did not see them have any good chemistry. So when the confliction of won't they be together comes into play, I didn't really feel anything. So like there was no stake for me in that aspect. Also, the extras in the movie were kind of weird. I know that's a weird thing to pick on, but like the extras are scattered throughout the entire movie, and they just kind of make the film a little awkward for me to continue. And I'm not a fan of. I know this is when after his father died, he wanted to get on the persona. I'm not a fan of how douchey Harry was in this movie. He was kind of acting like a tool in this movie. I get it, but I prefer the like more recluse and more like soft-spoken Harry from the first movie, and or maybe the villainous Harry in the third movie. But I was not a fan of this Harry. That's just me. But I do love that the tackles of responsibility for Peter, like everything's crashing down on him, giving him more weight to his character. I love the Aunt May scenes so much. I love Doctor Octopus, played by Alfred Molina, and I love that Doctor Connors isn't going to be Lizard in this series. I love that he's essentially helping Peter out through like these entire movies and like giving him purpose in his way of going. You know what I mean? So I like some of the stuff in this movie. I'm just not a huge fan like everybody else is. Coming in at number 5, we have Spider Man Homecoming. And a lot of people say that they did not like this one over Far From Home because this just felt like baby Iron Man, and I kind of call bullshit on it. It's literally a Spider-Man movie. It's just this is his first movie in the MCU. He's still like under the wing of Iron Man. Obviously, Iron Man's going to be a factor in this movie, and he just he owns the movie. He's just working his way up to becoming who he was meant to be. I also like Vulture as a villain. I said before, I'm not a fan of the Tony Stark haters becoming more occurrent Spider-Man villains, but I do like how this one started it. Like it ties to the destruction of Avengers 1, and and he's one of the crew members that gets laid off after like after Stark Industries says that they don't need them anymore, and it pushes them to make more money by like stealing weapons and selling them, but like doing it in a more like eccentric way, and I liked it. Also, Michael Keaton as Vulture is really intimidating when he needs to be. Like, I don't want to mess with this guy. I don't care how old he is. Like, I would not mess with this guy. And I love Tom Holland's performance as Peter Parker in this. It's so young Peter Parker that it puts a smile on my face. I don't know. I There's something like John Hughes vibes about his performance, and it gives me a lot of it gives me like a smile on my face, and I like it. Also, I am not a fan of the Liz character. She's just kind of there, kind of bland, and yeah, one of the aspects I didn't like. Also, I am not a fan of how quick the climax was of this movie. Like, it just felt a little rushed, so I was not a huge fan of it. But other than that, I did like this movie. I preferred it better than Far From Home. Coming in at number four, we have Spider Man No Way Home. And this is easily the best Tom Holland Spider Man movie, without a doubt. Like, it, it not only brings in the other Spider-Mans from the other movies, but it doesn't just give them it like they don't have just a cameo role or just a throwaway role. No, they are essential to the story and help build Tom Holland's Spider-Man into becoming the Spider-Man he was meant to be. And it's really awesome to see like a multiverse movie with purpose, and I loved it. And I love seeing the villains, or at least most of the villains from the original movies. And I love that Doctor Strange has, though a short role in here, he has an important role. He goes through an arc of his own, going from someone that goes like, I don't care about wiping out memories. It's time. Oh, it's nice knowing you. To the end, he's like saying like we won't have any memory of you if you do this. We won't have any memory of you, and he's torn up about it. Like it, I love that they gave him an arc. I love MJ and Tom, and Peter's performance in this or relationship in this movie. I love how it's grown from the second movie. I know the first movie was a little like she was just there. The second movie, and then that she became the girl, and then the third movie. But I love how well they work off each other. Considering the fact that they're together in real life too, it helps a lot, and they're together to this day. I love it, and I love the effects, I love the action, and I love how they finally managed to make Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin freaky and scary as hell in this movie. Like he's still like there are still some moments where you want to laugh, but like kind of like in an evil sense, and I'm like, wow, they really outdone his evilness. So I'm down, and I also like that there's much more stakes after R.I.P. Aunt May died. Like she was a really good character, a really good supporting character in this, and the fact that they killed her off and made her the Uncle Ben of this story just makes it even more emotional. And it's just a really well put together movie, and I felt like out of all the Tom Holland movies, this is the one that I'm excited to come back to the most. I'll go back and watch the other ones, but this is the one that I'll be excited to watch the most. And now we finally made it to my top three. And coming in at number three is Spider Man Into the Spider Verse. And when I saw the teaser to this movie, I was thinking to myself, the visuals look good, but I don't think this is going to be one of the best Spider Man movies. I think it might just be a mid. It might be The story might be The characters might be It just might be all over the place. But when I saw this movie, holy shit, was I wrong? Not only is this a really good story and really good characters, but the visuals speak for the characters and the story. And I love I love that they introduced a bunch of these Spider-Man characters and gave them so much depth despite some of them seeming like side characters. One of them even getting their own show now. It it puts a lot more depth when you put so much effort into making your characters interesting that it it helps your movie grow and makes your movie more worth watching. And when you put more emphasis on the characters than you do the effects, which the effects speak a lot in this movie, you know you're doing something right. And I love the more like beaten down older Peter Parker mentoring this new new Spider-Man who is in the form of Miles Morales, and he doesn't have it all figured out either. He's just winging it at this point, but they really do have a good chemistry. They all have good chemistry in this movie, and it really makes the movie work. And I really, really, really enjoy this movie. Coming in at number two, we have The Amazing Spider Man. And a lot of people say that this is okay at best, but not great. I think this movie is really great. Like, not only is Andrew Garfield perfectly cast as Spider-Man slash Peter Parker, he does a really good job. Not only is Gwen casted well, played by Emma Stone, and not only is the villain intriguing and has a lot of depth, but I love how they made this a grounded Spider-Man movie. We'll always have that campy, fun-filled Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, but I love that they gave us something new, something unique, something grittier, something more grounded, and you could feel all the grounded vibe, but just you could feel like the action in the air when it's needed. You know what I mean? I also love that when you get the POV shots of Spider-Man swinging around, you feel like you're swinging around with this guy. I forgot to mention that in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. They did a really good job incorporating that that Spider-Man swing POV. I love that. I love that POV. I love the chemistry. I also love the chemistry between Peter and Gwen in this movie. Like, it's strong here. It's really strong here. I did say that the Amazing Spider-Man, they do push it a little bit, but here it's 100% strong. I love their connection slowly building up. I love everything about it. The music is also great. The visuals are also great. The action feels heavy and grounded at the same time. I love everything about it. I also love Sally Field as Aunt May. She's great in this. So yeah, I do like this movie a lot. But coming in at my number one is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And man, when I said that the first movie had a lot of depth, a lot of good visuals, and a lot of good story, this movie does a lot more to elevate it and really makes the characters shine in this movie. They have a lot more characters in this one than they did in the first one, but they give everybody so much depth in this. Even some side characters that weren't seen a lot in the other one, they give them so much depth in here in this one, and they slowly build up and work their way up to the next movie. But they did a really good job making us not like anxiously waiting for the next movie. No, they put a lot of effort into making this an interesting Spider-Man movie. Not only do they give more backstory on Gwen, not only do they give more depth into Miles and how he really fits into the Spider-Verse, not only do they make Miguel O'Hara a much more recluse but very opposing leader in the Spider-Verse, but they really up the ante with the drama in here. Like, I love that they bring the Spider-Man lore into one conversation about how every Spider-Man has to have a sacrifice, meaning that they have to lose a loved one in order to become fully who they are. And if they don't, and if they end up saving them, then it causes a ripple in their canon event in their canon universe. And I love that it brings a lot more it brings a lot more pressure on the Miles, where he has the choice of either letting his father die so his universe could stay intact, or having or saving his father and risk losing his universe. I love that there's different ideologies in this, and they're all not trying to attack Miles, but bluntly trying to get him to understand them at any means necessary. And it creates a more interesting story, and I'm looking forward to what the next movie has in store for us. The next one might be the best one, but who knows? But I can say right now that this is the most intrigued I've felt in any Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. And if you have any suggestions on what I should do next, whether it's movies or music, then let me know in the comments below. And if you have your own list of your Spider-Man rankings, please leave them in the comments below. And remember, these are just my opinions, and I'm not saying my opinions matter than yours. I'm just giving my input on what a good Spider-Man movie is and what a bad Spider-Man movie is. So again, if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later.